see that. So if you're interested in that class, I'll link to that down below. It's available now, and I wove that on my Ashford 8 shaft table loom. And you can get away, because the sampler's thin and the project's thin, you can get away with having a smaller table loom. So mine is a 16-inch, so no problems having that somewhat limited width for that class. Some other samplers that I want to show you, these are from my brand new art cloth workshop. This is a rigid heddle class specifically, and the idea is that we put on a warp and we use a variety of techniques to make art and weaving marry together to make some really unique fabric. So just as some examples of that, this one is, I haven't finished this one at all, so it's just all raw edges, but that's using fabric paints on the warp. Here's another section. So in the workshop, it's really a sampler as well. There's not a project for this class, and that's purposeful. It's so that you can just have fun exploring, and then if you find that you really enjoy the techniques, then you can take those away and make your own project. And I give a few project suggestions within the class. So that's another one that has a variety of techniques used on it. This is another one that I did while I was testing for the class. Got a little rooster down the bottom there and all different techniques. So some of the techniques we use are overshot weaving, warp painting, stenciling, fabric markers, clasp weft. That's just a few of them that I can think of at the moment. It's a really fun class. I actually had a great deal of fun filming this. This is another sample that I was doing. This was more to point out the differences that the weft can make. So up here I've got a white weft, and then down here I've changed to a gold weft. Down here I've introduced a little bit of pink with the gold, and then down the bottom I've got a black weft. And all the wefts are the same weight as the warp. So it's about letting the colours speak within the piece and using colours that are catered to your needs. So for example, if you wanted to dull the colours down a little bit, have them look a little bit lighter, then the white weft is a good idea. And if you want the opposite, if you want the colours to kind of pop and look darker, then the black weft is a good idea. That's something that people ask me about a lot, is just using, which colour weft for whichever effect you want to do. And then these are some of the final samples that I had for the sun printing component of the class, which is the last bit of the class, and I think perhaps the most fun part. So this is one of the samples that was from the sun printing. Here's another one, butterflies. So I used my Cricut machine to cut out the butterflies for me, and then that was really easy to just stick them on, and it gives really nice crisp shapes. Here's another one where I used some leaves and just lay the leaves on top for the sun printing. And this one is probably my favorite. I used some sun printing on this side, and then on this side I used some salt effects, and I really love salt effects. So that's what's been happening on my table loom, my rigid heddle loom. Now we'll talk about what's happening on the floor loom, you can see already. But let's take a closer look so I can explain it to you. So this has been my Sunday Fun Day project for the past couple of weeks. I call it my Sunday project because I'm usually too busy during the week doing other stuff for the weaving school and just in general running the business, that I don't really get to do any weaving that I just want to do for myself. And Sunday afternoons, usually a little bit later in the afternoon after we've got back from church, I get a little bit of weaving time in the studio just to myself. And so this is one of those projects. So this is a lovely twill on M&W threading. It's a really pretty pattern. like diamonds within diamonds, but I love all the wavy lines and everything as well. I actually just changed to this dark navy weft, and it's definitely my favorite so far because it shows up the pattern so well. What I'm using here is a fingering weight wool in both weft and warp, and it's the same type of wool, just different colors. But here's the really cool part about this project. You can probably see it already from the way the side looks a little bit unusual, but it is double width. I can stick my hand right in there, over to the other side. So this is really exciting for me actually, because my loom is only 90, it's a 90 centimeter Louet, David, and that is, I think it's about 35 inches weaving width. But it's difficult to even get that weaving width because I don't actually like slaying the whole reed, the entire width, because it just makes it really difficult to weave at the very edges. There's just not a lot of room for the warp to go through at the sides when you get that close to the edges. And I really, at this stage of my weaving life, I really want to weave, some of you are going to guess this already because you've watched me before, but I want to weave coverlets, but I also want to weave larger items like blankets. And it's been challenging to do that because of the limited weaving width. Now, I have been in the market looking for a Glasbrook loom, which, you know, they come up to, I think up to 160 centimeters wide. And considering this one is 90 centimeters, that's quite a bit more weaving width. It would seem like quite a luxury. But they are quite difficult to find in Australia secondhand. They are around, but usually they're in other states and that sort of thing. And they're really big, heavy looms, so not easy to transport. I'm still looking and I haven't given up, but the only way I'm going to get one of those is if I buy it secondhand, because new they are, around $10,000, something like that. They've got to be imported from the US as well, and that's just not going to happen for me. So hopefully I will find a secondhand one. I probably will at some point, and then I have to actually fit it into my studio as well. Well, that's another problem for another day. But anyway, I'm very pleased to be successfully weaving this double width piece on this loom. And so it is a 4 shaft pattern ordinarily, but because it's double width, I'm using 8 shafts. And it's not actually as difficult as I thought it would be to set this up and weave it. It's actually pretty straightforward. If you're interested specifically in double width weaving, I recommend Jennifer Moore's Doubleweave book. That's a really good one, and that's what got me really geared up to give this a go, not feel so scared about it. And of course, like all things, once you've actually done it, it's not scary at all. My next big challenge, and I am scared about this, is to try and take an overshot draft and convert that to double width weaving. I think that's going to fry my brain a little bit, but we'll see, we'll see. Next up, once I finish this, because this is really just a sampler, I was trying out different weft yarns, different colors, and I guess I sort of wanted to prove to myself that I could actually do it first as well. Next up, I want to do a much bigger width so that I can do a blanket size. If you notice something a little bit funny in the middle here, I did miss a dent in the reed when I was slaying the reed, and I only realized a little way in, and then I was like, I don't care. I'm not gonna bother about reslaying all of that because it's halfway in. I thought, okay, it's a sampler and I'll just live with that. But what I'm really looking forward to is getting this off the loom and of course opening it up. I have been checking the fold as I go, and I've been experimenting with different tensions, weft tension, to see how the fold reacts. And I think I've hit on a pretty good level of tension, but you don't really know for sure until you have the piece off the loom and can open it up properly. You can loosen off the tension, and let me do that now. and you can stick your hand in there and sort of bring the weaving to the side a little bit so that you can view your fold at least a little bit. And that way you can know if you're on the right track or not. But still, of course, the ultimate test is getting it off the loom. The other thing that I had to really adjust for this piece, when I first started weaving it, I was beating just like a regular beat like I normally would, fairly firm, I guess. And the weft seemed really pushed in, really too close. And there are two reasons for this. First of all, that obviously this pattern just requires a beat that's not so strong. So I adjusted my beat a lot, and now I'm just kind of using, just as a demo, I don't have any yarn in my bobbin, so I can't show you a pic, but just to show you, I'm sort of just pressing it instead of, you know, whacking it with a beat. And that has helped a lot so that you can really see the pattern. But I think some of these warp threads are a little bit too long. And the way that I would counteract that when I actually start my blanket is that I'm going to make the set a little bit closer. So another really important aspect of doing the sampler again was to determine the correct set for this pattern and for the yarn that I'm using. And yeah, I really feel like the set needs to be closer. So I would definitely do that with my next blanket. Got a couple of things sitting beside me here that I wanted to talk about as well. This is, if you follow me on social media, you will have already seen this, but this is Keep Me Warm One Night, this beautiful book. It's by Burnham & Burnham. And it's all about early Canadian weaving. And so it's right up my alley because, of course, it talks a lot about coverlets. Now, I really wanted this book for a really long time, for years actually. And I just thought it was one of those books that I would never get to have in my possession because on Amazon, it's going for $200 to $500 US. And that's pretty crazy. But one of my wonderful students, Nanette, she came across the book and purchased it and then contacted me and asked me whether I would like the book. And of course I was absolutely thrilled to hear that. And we worked out a little trade so that we were both very happy with the exchange. But I'm just still incredibly grateful to her for thinking of me in the first place and for being willing to part with this book. So what I'm doing, is little by little, and this is part of my Sunday fun day as well, that I get to read a little bit of this usually on a Sunday afternoon or evening. And there's quite a lot of information in here. The first part of the book is just a lot of pages of text with some pictures that are relevant. So it does take a bit of reading, but I'm really enjoying reading about the history of the tools and the people and the places and everything about coverlets. So it's a really great book. And then in the later part of the book, there are lots of weaving drafts and that sort of thing. So I'm looking forward to getting to that part of the book, and I'm just really happy to have this book. It's a bit of a treasure for me. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about relates to future hopes and dreams, of which there are many, I can assure you. But this poor little loom has been sitting empty since we moved into this property, which was May last year. So many months it's been sitting with no warp and no activity. And that makes me sad, and I really want to do something about that. This is my big sister Mirrix loom, and it's a tapestry loom. And I have used it a fair bit. I've had it for a few years now, but I haven't used it nearly as much as I want to. When I bought it, I sort of had the idea that there would always be a warp on here, and it could be just one of those really slow projects where I could just work at it when I felt like it or when I had the time. But as it is, I haven't even had the time to warp it. Another thing that is holding me back a little bit from this is I haven't really felt like I've had appropriate tapestry yarns yet. I've used a bunch of different yarns, and although I've had some okay results, I haven't really done any tapestries or even samples that are anywhere near what I wanted to be doing on a tapestry loom. And I think that's going to come with practice. I'm pretty sure it's going to come with practice, but I've found it frustrating that a lot of the things that I've done on here have just been, I've finished them and thought, no, that wasn't really what I was going for, and I don't feel like I really learned the things that I wanted to learn in this project. And I feel like part of that might be my weft yarns that I've been using. I'm very happy with my warp. I use our number 12 seine twine, and I love that as a warp. But the wefts, no, knitting yarns and things like that just don't really cut it for tapestry. Now, in Australia, we do have the Australian Tapestry Workshop. It's actually in Melbourne, and of course I don't live in Melbourne anymore, so I can't go there and have a look at the yarns, but their yarns have a very good reputation. And to have them so close, and they've got so many different shades, which would be great for blending and all of that. So part of my plan going forward for this loom is to be able to purchase at least a certain number of weft yarns from the Tapestry Workshop that I can play around a lot more with colour blending and that sort of thing, because what I really love in tapestry is seamless blending and very artistic looking pieces. I also like really realistic pieces that look like paintings. Now, I don't know if I've got that in me to do that kind of artwork on a loom, but it's something that I would definitely like to work towards. I wanted to share with you the tapestry books that I have currently, in case you're interested in tapestry as well. And I do have a Tapestry for Rigid Heddle Loom class. I'll leave a link to that down below in case you're interested in that. This is the tapestry book that I started out with. It's Tapestry Weaving by Kirsten Glasbrook. And I think it's a really fantastic beginner's book. I actually got this years and years ago from my local library, and then I ended up purchasing it because I thought, yes, this is really good stuff to know. So it's all about the basics, about the basic techniques to get you going. And it also includes a fair bit of Kirsten's work, which is really interesting and inspiring. So if you just wanted an absolute beginner's book in tapestry, this is a really good one to start with. The next tapestry book that I got, and I got this on pre-order because I wanted it so much, was Rebecca Mezoff's Tapestry, The Art of Tapestry Weaving. Not only is this a really good book, but I love that it's hardcover and it's quality, because what I find with a lot of books that I buy these days is just the quality is not there anymore. They're just printing them more cheaply and taking shortcuts, but still charging quite a lot for them. I always feel a little bit disappointed if I buy a weaving book and it doesn't have like really clear color photos and that sort of thing. I just think that's an essential tool for learning. So Rebecca's book meets those expectations very much, and it's really a very comprehensive book. I would even say this is good as a beginner's book as well, but beginner and beyond. It gives a lot of examples and samples, also shows you a lot of tapestry works to inspire you, and it's easy to follow. So that's also a really good one. And then more recently, I bought this one by Tommye Scanlin. I hope I'm pronouncing her name properly. Tommye, or it might be Tommye. I'm not really sure, I'm not very familiar with the name. So it's Tommye. If I'm mispronouncing, you can let me know in the comments. This is a really interesting book. I bought this because I really admire her work. I think she's probably my favorite tapestry artist. She does a lot of, you can see on the front cover, a lot of leaves and just things from nature, but she depicts them so beautifully and so realistically. That's my kind of goal, is to be able to take a photo or a painting and to be able to represent that, not exactly the same on the loom, but to take the inspiration from the original view of what the thing is, whether it's a leaf or whether it's mountains or whatever it is. I love her color blending, and I love her design, and obviously she's a very skilled tapestry artist. She includes a lot of examples of other artists' work. But what I probably would have liked to see in this book is more of her own work, but maybe that's just me because I'm a bit of a fan. So anyway, it's still a really good book, but if you were just really starting out, I'd probably say these two maybe would be better suited for absolute beginners. The last thing that I'm really excited about that's going to be happening in the very near future is I am finally going to get heating in this studio. Not that I need it at the moment because it's early autumn and it's quite warm. It's actually been a great studio over summer because it didn't heat up too much. But over winter, last winter, a lot of the time I just couldn't work out here because it's just so freezing cold. So I have purchased the heater. It's a split system. It's going to go up on the wall, so it's going to blow warm air on me as I work at this loom, which will be beautiful. And it'll just mean that I can spend as much time out here as I want to or need to over winter. And maybe in my future videos, you won't see me all rugged up like I'm going on an ice expedition like you would have noticed over the last winter videos that I did. As far as what I'm going to be working on in the immediate future, I'm going to finish off this sampler. I have just released the art cloth workshop this week. So usually when I release a new class, I have a little bit of a break in between before I start a new project, whether it be a new class or whether it be a new Etsy design or whatever it is. I give myself at least a little bit of a break in between because it is a lot of work and I feel pretty exhausted at the end of a project. So besides resting and making bread and all those good things that I do and spending time with my family, I'm going to get this off the loom and then I will decide on colours and everything that I want to use for the actual blanket and hopefully get started on that really soon. And then I may even have it finished before the winter chill comes. Now, something you can do for me as a favour, I would really appreciate, is if you could tell me in the comments, is there anything that you haven't seen on the weaving school that you would really like to see there? A specific type of class, a specific technique that you haven't yet learned and you haven't seen me do videos on? Or is there a specific design that you would like to see in my Etsy shop? If you could share your ideas with me, that would be really great because I can make as many different classes and designs as I want to, but I may not always be in tune with what you as the weaver are looking for. So I'm always interested to hear what you would like to see next. Okay friends, well, thank you for spending this time with me today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you did. And until next time, happy weaving.